one time my father took me out to the field, gave me a glove and a baseball bat to try to play baseball. Couldn't do it. I didn't want to. My father kind of said, like, what's wrong? Why don't you want to do this? And I turned to him and I said, I don't want to play baseball. I want to own the team.
Whoa.
And that just shut everyone up. From like 7 years old to my mid-30s, I was dealing with a deep depression, but really couldn't articulate why. Because I was, at that time I had a life. I was going to college, I was going to grad school.
Is There More is the podcast where creators share how their darkest moments became the breakthroughs that changed everything. We're building a space for raw stories, deep connection, and real hope for everyone who's still writing their story. Brought to you by Dialogue Life Skills, the world's scalable solution to the teen and young adult mental health crisis. I'm your host, Megan Aully, and I'm listening. We are teaching a free 6-week Dialogue Life Skills workshop starting August 18th on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time, and we would love for you to join. So bring a family member, friend, coworker, or follower, and click the link in the description to sign up. Now, back to the show. Today's guest is Albert Bramante, a talent agent and performance psychologist who helps individuals reach peak performance and overcome self-doubt. Albert is really good at setting boundaries now, but it didn't come without being an extreme people pleaser. So if you have major people pleasing tendencies and you want to learn from one of the best people in the world how to stop being that way, listen up. Welcome, Albert Bramante. Hello, Albert Bramante.
Hi, Megan. Thanks so much for having me on here.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I'm really honored. The way that you reached out to me was so moving and touching. You said you watched one of our episodes with Victoria, who was a dancer. Can you kind of just give the audience a background of what you liked in the conversation with Victoria?
Well, I like, just the fact that she's a dancer, I work with actors, so I can understand the mindset that struggles that a lot of actors go through. Self-doubt, imposter syndrome, sometimes not feeling enough, and dealing with fear of success, and a whole host of other things that can happen.
Yeah. You said you work with actors. You're a talent agent, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. My company is Bramante Artists, so and we're a full-service talent agent in New York. So we represent actors for film, TV, theater, musical theater, commercial, print, and voiceover. So we're pretty much a full-service agency. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And you're also a psychologist?
Yes, not a clinical psychologist, but I'm more of a performance psychologist, mindset. This is more of a mindset coach, performance coach.
Okay.
So I have the training. By training, I'm a psychologist. I have a PhD. I am... Full story, I was intending to be a clinical psychologist. That was my training initially. But towards the end of my studies, there was a lot of things that weren't kind of working with me anymore, in a sense.
Can you tell us what are those things?
Yeah. One was timing, because when I was working on my PhD and right around the time for beginning the coursework, especially for a clinical program, you have to do 2,000 hours of an internship, plus a 750-hour practicum. So that's like a year and a half full-time alone in the field. At that time, I was just hired full-time to be a college professor at Union County College in New Jersey, which that is a full-time job in itself. Plus, I was still working the agency side of it at that time. So it was tough because then I had to search for a site and I wouldn't really have the time to commit to it. That was really the first major obstacle. The second was the clinical psychology. Now, I love psychology. I appreciate it immensely. I still teach, part-time. What wasn't resonating with me was the pathology side and the focusing so much on symptoms and labels and diagnostics, and it was kind of creating a lifetime of sickness, a lifetime of illness. And it just wasn't working for me anymore.
Wow. So let me see if I got that. You one part of it was timing, why you didn't continue and get your actual license, right?
Mhm.
And the other part of it, well, the second part of it, there's three parts, but the second part was that you didn't agree with a lot of the pathology side of it and the labeling and the diagnoses and the focus on the problem, and so that was something you didn't like either. Did I get that?
That's absolutely correct. Yes, that was definitely a part of it. Um,
Is there more to that?
yes, when I say the pathology side, is I've had a lot of, when I was in school, I would hear all these case studies of like so and so was in therapy for 8, 9, 10 years, and
Hmm.
still really not making that much progress.
Okay.
And so that was just sort of not and working with me, but also I want to focus on what goes right with people, not necessarily
Right.
what's wrong with people, but what's right with people. And let's get people to from a state of deficiency or what we might call sickness
Hmm.
in there, and make it more for resourcefulness and more for empowerment. A lot of times and this is how I feel, and I want to caveat that with my feeling only, is I
Hmm.
felt that it was a disease, kind of more of a disease model of looking
Okay.
at behavior rather than empowering them. So that was why it wasn't really working for me. Those two factors, the time factor of it and just the aspects of it.
Yeah, the focus on the bad things about people
Yeah.
versus the good things about people and progress. I love how you said like you talked to somebody who's like they've been in therapy for 8 years and there wasn't a whole lot of progress. And sometimes I wonder that. I had a woman on a couple weeks ago who similar to you did the whole PhD and then never got licensed. Her reasoning wasn't the same, but I have heard like certified therapists say that it's designed to keep you coming back,
Yeah.
traditional therapy. So,
And that was just something that wasn't sitting well with me. I mean, a whole host of reasons why people don't, study clinical psychology. And it's not we're not the only ones that just we go all this far and we just don't become licensed in it. And
yeah.
also, I mean, again, this is all my perspective, so I'm not here to try to trash. I don't want to
Yeah,
trash talk the field because I think it's amazing. But
totally.
I also feel like, again, when you focus on the pathology, you sometimes are re-traumatizing people or like
Hmm.
focusing always on that trauma. Now, we've all, and another thing I want to, I think all of us at some level had been traumatized.
Hmm. Yeah.
So we all have trauma. We're all carrying a trauma. But it's not going to be productive if I'm going to have you constantly, like, I'm just using this example, you coming in week after week and be like, okay, Megan, let's talk about your trauma. How are you dealing with this week? This trauma of what happened to you. And then what would I be doing? You'd be walking out of the session feeling lousy.
Yeah.
And is that really effective? I'm not entirely sure. I
Hmm.
That's just the way I look at it. So now I don't want to deny what's happened to you, but I kind of want to look at more from the coaching standpoint of, okay, how can we get you from the state of being, reactive to creation to survivor,
Yeah.
from victims to survivor mode.
So that's why you got into NLP
And hypnosis, yes,
and
because
hypnosis. Yeah.
and a lot of the processes that we use in that is very similar to psychotherapy and therapeutics. So it's not a whole jump of a difference. The only thing is we're looking more of really getting you to the point where you have all the resources you need.
Yeah.
And you could do this work on yourself in a much shorter time period. So maybe not, instead of 6 years, maybe 6 to 10 sessions, and that's
Yeah.
it. And the goal here is, I wouldn't want you to become dependent on me. What's important is for you to have your own resources that you need, everything you
Yeah.
need yourself to do the work yourself. And that's the key of I think an effective coach is really to get the person that they're coaching to their clients to become their own coaches to the point where they don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, that might mean I might lose some financial, a long-term financial benefits at the end at some point. But the key is that if people are getting better, it's going to make, be less of a stigma of going to therapy.
Yeah.
And then more people will be doing it. So it's a win-win, in my opinion. If we kind of work with everyone to get them out of resourceful state so they don't need us anymore.
You're doing good work.
Okay. But yeah,
So-
I think that's like the really main reason why I left clinical psychology.
Absolutely. I think that's a great reason. So they say that people who have they're in touch with their pain the most are able to heal the best. Was there something that happened in your life where you really had to overcome?
Oh yeah. And I'm still, it's not like a point where, okay, I've overcome it, I'm done. No, it's a work in progress. And that's another thing that we really need to, it's like, it's a daily practice a lot of times. My life has been a roller coaster, at least in the beginning part. When I was born with a whole host of health problems, I was pretty much a baby. I was also in a family where I don't want to say the outcast, because everybody treated me well, but I was at a point where I was different. I'm the youngest of five. I'm the only child between my mother and father. My father had other marriages and other children from other marriages. So I have older brothers and sisters that are much older than me. And for them, they were very much interested in sports. My father was a coach. My older brothers were coaches. I could care less about sports, even to this day. Yeah, I only watch the Super Bowl through commercials, and that's it. And maybe the halftime show. I have no interest.
I watch it for the halftime show.
Yeah. I have no interest in sport.
So you grew up in a family, you were one of 5 kids. You had a whole host of health problems, and you didn't really relate with the people in your family because everybody, weirdly enough though, they were into sports and they were also coaches.
Well, athletic coaches, I meant like athletic, like.
Well, I know, but you did become a coach of some sort, so that's interesting.
That is interesting.
But you didn't really see eye to eye on common interests because they were into sports and you weren't.
Yeah, and I was into books and they weren't. They still aren't into that much reading. I am. I always was into reading. So that was very exciting. One thing that really made it different, in a sense. One of the defining moments where I think I kind of got my family to back off because my father was trying to toughen me up, the old school generation. Get me into sports, get me, tackle a few times on the football field, and that'll toughen this boy up. And that was, I don't blame him. I mean, that was how it was, in his generation, done in his generation.
Yeah.
I don't remember this, but I keep hearing this story over and over again. One time my father took me out to the field, gave me a glove and a baseball bat to try to play baseball with my brothers and I. It was a bonding activity. Couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it. And I think my father kind of said, like, what's wrong? Why don't you want to do this? And I turned to him and I said, I don't want to play baseball. I want to own the team.
Whoa.
And that just shut everyone up. And that was like the end of the trying to get me to do that. Now, one of the challenges that I had was I wasn't really included in social outings because it involved sports and they knew I wasn't going to do that. And I had no interest in it. So, that kind of, I think, even led me as a kid to not feel wanted. Like, what's wrong with me? Because even I had cousins too around my age that were also into sports. So there'd be like these group outings and I wouldn't be. I don't want to, at that, my kid version took me and I wasn't invited. But I look back in hindsight, I wouldn't have enjoyed myself even if I went. So it's not that they're
doing you a favor.
Exactly. They were doing that's exactly what it was. But of course, my childhood brain didn't see it that way. So I saw that I'm not wanted. And
of course. How could you not? So everybody was into sports. One time your dad asked you to come play baseball, gave you a glove, gave you a bat, and you for some reason didn't want to do it. And in that moment, you realized that you didn't want to play sports, you wanted to own the team.
Yeah.
And you said that to your dad, and I bet that was not something he received well.
Yeah, I don't
But
think he received well, but I also think it was kind of like loud and clear
yeah, it's like a defining moment.
that, his son wasn't going to be like the rest.
Period.
Especially when I would sit, kept asking me, "What do you want to do?" I want to go read. I want to go read, and that was foreign to him. Another significant event that I think really affected me negatively. Very innocent remark by my mom. I was 6 years old. I was helping her do laundry, and I turned to her and I said, "Why don't I have any brothers and sisters my age?"
Mm.
Because they were like, they're like 11, 12, 13, 14 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And she just nonchalantly said, "Well, I didn't really want to have kids."
Wow.
And I
So
think combined with that, about not being included and hearing that, for I would say the next couple of decades of my life, I have this complex of I'm unloved, I'm unwanted, I'm a burden.
wow.
And so now what I do with my, hypnosis and NLP coaching is when I talk about trauma, it doesn't have to be a sensational event like, oh, an accident, an assault, a rape, an abuse case. A trauma could be a simple day in the life activity combined over time. An innocent remark that can be internalized wrong. You competing for your parents' love in a sense, or your parents favoring siblings over yourself. That can be significant trauma because I know if I experienced it. And
Yeah, it can be something that the parent doesn't realize that they're even doing.
yeah, and my parents didn't realize what they were doing. My mom didn't realize what she said, and now I understand that. But at that time, and I didn't really connect it to till I was really maybe the past 8 or 9 years, where I said, okay, wow, this really makes sense now.
Mm.
Because again, it was just a remark that I didn't even think was bad at first. I didn't even think it was bad.
Right. Until you look back and you realize, oh, maybe this did something to me. That is, how did you get back to that point and realize that? Was that through NLP, like
Yes,
through therapy of any
through a
kind?
lot of self-hypnosis, through my own
Okay.
therapy. Because I would say from like 7 years old to really in my mid-30s, I was dealing with a deep depression in a sense. I would say from like starting at 7 to probably maybe like 34, 35-ish.
Okay.
So, and that was like 12, 13 years ago. So it really wasn't, and again, I didn't really have anything to link it to. I mean, yeah, there were things I was depressed about, but there were a lot of times moments where I was feeling so much intense sadness, but really couldn't articulate why
Mm-hmm.
or how or what was the cause, because I was at that time I had a lot. I was going to college, I was going to grad school, I was doing great things, but why wasn't I happy?
Yeah.
Even
So you were feeling a very deep depression from 7 to 35?
yeah,
And a lot of times you couldn't articulate why because your life was actually going well.
right.
So you couldn't figure out why you were feeling that.
Yeah.
Did I get that?
Why am I so unhappy when I've got everything going for me? It wasn't until I kind of attached all of these like little micro incidences that I was like, okay, this really makes a difference now. So not only was I dealing with deep depression, another thing that I was dealing with an intense people pleasing tendency. People pleasing, codependency even. I was very codependent most of my teenage and adult life. I mean, early adult life.
Can you give us the definition of codependent?
So, I mean, a lot of people frame it in a substance abuse world, but I didn't have any issues with drug addiction in my family. But
Mm.
for me, codependency is when you become so wrapped up into something else and someone else that you just lose yourself, and you really, your own functioning really depends on somebody else's approval of you. And so I was dealing with that a lot, where I needed somebody's approval, and I needed people to love me. I needed people to like me. I needed to feel needed. That's another thing too. Like we're rescuers. Codependents are rescuers, where they feel like we have to be the saviors of people. When that's the furthest thing from the truth. That's really and so that was sort of like where I was at. I really needed to be connected with people, and it cost me a lot.
What did it cost you?
Relationships, both personally and professionally. I think that was kind of like my breaking point. Was I had said earlier I was hired for a tenure-track assistant professor position in 2008. I was excited, top of the world. Excited, At that time, I was teaching for 5 years. I loved it. It was like, this is my dream come true. And what had happened was I went in with the notion I'm going to make them happy. They're going to like me. I'm going to do whatever they. So I was your yes man. You asked me anything, I did it. And I was. So it started, and I think you're like, because you know where I'm about to go here.
I'm only laughing because I'm like, that's such a character, in my mind. Go ahead.
You want me to do that? Yes. You want me to do that? Yeah. And it really didn't take me till a point where I was removed from the situation where like, that's being taken advantage of here. Because what had happened was apparently there was a major teaching shortage there was a massive enrollment and teacher shortage. So they kept asking me, you want extra classes? We have an extra class that needs to be filled here. It became to a point now, the average full-time load for a college professor, at least at this college, it varies from college to college, is five classes a semester. That's what a minimum load is. Most professors were doing like maybe one or two extras to kind of make a little extra money and help out. But not me, because I want to do it all. I am not. There were semesters where I had 12 or 13 classes.
Oh my gosh. Really?
And yeah, but I was justifying to myself, I loved it. More students, it was great, until my third year where I was like, okay. And I just went through a massive burnout that just snuck up on me like a ton of bricks, where I became physically, emotionally, and spiritually burned out to the point where I honestly, I think my family was ready to like do major intervention on me, because I was sleeping all the time. I was grouchy. I was just a zombie most of the day, most of my days. Now, when I say it cost me, that's number one thing, because that's another thing I talk about is burnout, because I'm not effective anymore at this point. And as a matter of fact, it's working against me. So in the middle of all this, they changed administration at my college. Like new people came in right around in the middle of my burnout. Now, of course, another symptom of burnout in a job sense is you start dropping the ball, which I was doing. And I'll be completely self-reflective on that. I was on something. I was dropping the ball. They had told my department and all departments that you need to make a cut, because we're cutting budgets down. We need to cut. You need to get rid of 2 people per department. So you can guess who was one of them.
Me. Must have been you.
So that was like a, really stab in the back, because the way that they tried to get rid of me initially in the beginning was by cause, trying to find a cause. They didn't really say, they couldn't come out and say we're cutting out a budget. So I got a letter one day. It was right between my 4th and 5th year of my tenure. About to go for my tenure review. And I did go for my tenure review, and I had a lot of support. I got a letter saying, we're letting you go because of your poor academic performance. That was it. There was no explanation. 3 words,
Wow.
poor academic performance. Okay. The next week, I get a notification that I'm being awarded by the College Foundation for Excellence in Teaching. So how do you explain that? And then, of course, I spoke to, people who were unofficially pulling me aside who were part of the like committees on college saying, look, it's just a boilerplate thing they're trying to justify. Like, it's a CYA, if you know what that means.
No, I don't.
Well, cover their ass. Cover their ass.
Oh, got you. Okay.
Cover their ass. Cover your ass is college.
Yep, CYA.
So I got a lawyer and everything, because, and my lawyer was very honest and upfront with me. He's like, look, it's very subjective who they want in education, who they want to give tenure to. They could just say, I don't like what you're wearing today. I'm not giving you. And it's really, that's that unfair, but it's true.
You didn't know that at the time, did you? Okay.
But what I was saying, okay, well, if that's the case, I want to at least fight. I want to get this letter out of my record.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. It became simply like, we're not giving you tenure amongst other people. That was what it really turned out to be. But It was still a major blow because I put so much blood, sweat, tears into this. And of course, then I did, a lot of professional research into people pleasing and all that. And it's very common that they're not at all respected. And now, look, I can sit here and say, well, I could have, would have, should have. What if I did this? What if I did that? I don't know. I don't know if I set boundaries, if the situation would have, and maybe still had the same outcome. But I know I would have at least processed it a lot better.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been such a blow had the same outcome have happened. So that was like the major situation where it was like, I need to wake up now.
Right. I was going to ask you that. But would it have had the impact on you that it needed to have for you to stop being a people pleaser and for you to stand up for yourself if you didn't really hit that rock bottom? I needed that
experience. Because now as a college instructor, I am very much a boundaries person. So I'll do what you expect. I will still be there. In the past, like this is how I was. I was the type of instructor that I was giving my personal cell number to students. Like, oh, give me a call, if you need anything. Now I don't. I'm like, here's my work email, my school email. And that's it. You reach me, you email me at the school email address if you need me. And I still get the accolades I was getting when I was doing it hasn't changed. So, but my sanity is a lot more, in check. And I only do the bare minimum. Like I teach my class and I leave. I teach my class and I leave. And that's it. Another major wake-up call, personally, and one of the things I was doing was if I became friends with somebody, I would tend to, as a codependent side of me, latch on, because that's what codependents do. We latch on unfairly, and sometimes too much. It's not fair. But
to the other person's detriment.
It's not fair.
And to our detriment.
So I had brought somebody on to work in my business, my talent agency business, my old office when I years ago, and I think just being around her all the time, and also another thing about codependence is the people we latch onto are often not the best people to latch onto.
Because aren't they often narcissists?
Yeah. So this person had a major alcohol problem. Problems with, later on I found this out, was institutionalized in the past for bipolar disorder. So, but it was like white on rice type of a thing. Okay, we're attracted to the people that really have the most, the really unhealthy ones. So I found myself allowing her to do a lot of things in the office. I was allowing her to drink in the office. That's
crazy.
Which now I look back, I'm like, what? WTF was I thinking?
Yeah.
Why would I do that? Um,
People pleasing, I guess.
no, I wanted,
Like,
no,
I'm a yes man.
it was pleasing Captain Obvious. I wanted her to like me.
Yeah, I
Okay.
want you to like me. Does that come with people have told me this recently because I'm similar. I'm like, oh my God, I need you to like me. I need you to love me. And does it come with like because I don't want you to leave me because I don't want to feel the pain of you leaving me? Is that kind of like the flip side of that?
Part of it, and I'm gonna even go even deeper when I say that. A lot of times it's not necessarily the person that's leaving us that's painful, the idea that somebody's leaving in our life.
Right. It does not matter of the
It
person at
doesn't matter at
all.
all because looking back in hindsight, I'm like, what was I thinking? You know,
Literally, yeah.
and what was I thinking? But that was part of it too. I wanted her to like me, and I was just doing everything, and then I had that complex. Well, if only I could work with her, I could really get her to change and all that stuff. And no, and then
Oh,
that blew up in my face, and that it was a combination because this was happening at the same time that I was let go,
oh man.
and I think that combination was the situation was it bad enough? Yes, it was at this point. Because usually when people can only change will only really change when it's bad enough. And this was my bad enough moment.
Is there a reason behind that? Because I find that to be so true, but like, what is that? It's just human nature?
It's human nature. Well, part of it, I, and also there has to be an incentive to change because we're so stubborn as people.
Okay.
We don't change unless we really, really have to.
That's facts. I'll
And
take it.
and even the same thing with like let's like somebody who's a drug or alcohol user. A lot of times they don't change unless they hit rock bottom. They lose all their family, or they almost die. They
Yep.
find themselves in a hospital or really sick, or they get incarcerated. To a point. It's sometimes they really just have to hit rock bottom before they can change.
Yep.
So
So this was your rock bottom, bottom of rock bottom.
it was at the bottom of my rock, and it wasn't. It was just like, okay, time to change. Got to go up from here, and so now I'm very much into boundaries. Like, okay, and I'm still work in progress. I'm sure there's ways I can
Yeah.
improve, but and I think that boundaries, both professionally and personally, are extremely important,
Hmm.
both for my own protection as well as the protection of the other person in my life, in a sense. 'Cause,
Yeah. I believe that to be true too. Personal and professional boundaries.
yes,
That's really cool that you say professional boundaries because I feel like a lot of times we just hear it in a personal sense, like in a relationship sense or friendship sometimes, maybe even family, but we hardly hear it in like a professional sense. So I think that's really cool that you were like, okay, I'm not going to give any more students my number. Like I want to have a life too, right? You can have my work email and email me. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. No, we really need boundaries to be set, and I think it's this the important way to go. Um,
Hmm.
and we can still be great people. We can still be great at what we do, and still be boundaries. And I think that's an important thing. I can still be a very caring person. I can still be a very nice person, a very generous person. But I also need to be protecting myself too, and protecting the well-being of other people. So, and it doesn't change the
Yeah.
situation. Still get a lot of great evaluation from students, thank you from students. But
Absolutely. And they probably respect you more because you're able to set that boundary.
yes,
Is this part of you talked about, and I've been hearing this a lot lately, projection. Like we just had a conversation about this earlier in one of my meetings.
yeah.
Project what does projection mean to you?
So projection is when we take our thoughts, our feelings, our ideas, and put them onto somebody else. So um, oftentimes now it can be very deep and to a point where really when we get into relationships with people, a lot of times our viewpoints of them, how we feel about them, are really extensions to how we feel about ourselves. So
Mm,
like hatred or judgment, if we start judging other people, it's really our own self-hatred and self-judgment. but also it
Yeah.
can be applied to our ideas of people. See, I hear a lot in relationships, especially over the years, where people say, "Well, I was with somebody for years, and now suddenly they changed." And I'm like, "But did they? Or did your
Or
idea
did you?
of them, the masks that you were putting onto them, now that starts to fade? Because maybe they were who they were all this time, but now your idea of them is fading. So your projection of them, um, it's very deep if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because we often, I mean, let's look at all this. You get into a romantic relationship with somebody in the beginning, they're the best person ever. It's
Yep.
like, everything that they do is so cute and so lovely, and you're going to work really, really hard to get to do what they want to do. If they're into like sports and eating healthy, you're going to go try to eat healthy and try to get into sports. And then as it goes on, those behaviors that you found cute and charming now become annoying. And that's why those relationships are going apart. And then you'll hear people say, "Oh, why did they change? What's happening here?" No, the mask is coming off. That's all.
Hmm. So we, in dialogue, we understand that there's three phases of love. You just described the romance phase and then the power struggle phase. And they say, like, I think it's like 90% of relationships die in the power struggle phase.
Yeah, because what happens is, and this is gonna, I mean, we're gonna get, this is an adult usually in the beginning there's a lot of passion. A lot of
Yeah.
passion, a lot of romance, a lot of sexuality. It's fun, energetic, and we're so excited, we're infatuated. And then all of a sudden, it just starts ending over time. And eventually, if there's no deeper love, because one of the deep levels of love is companionate love,
Hmm.
which is like what we see with married, where it's like a combination of romantic but also familial type love.
Yeah.
But the important thing is we have to keep that passion alive. If that goes, it's like, there goes that relationship. That's why I like a lot of times those rebound or those quick physical flings don't last very long.
Yeah.
Because you don't have anything in common really with that person. And that's why, like, I know a lot of workplace romances never work out.
Mm.
Very rarely.
Yeah.
Very rarely. I mean, there's always exceptions, but I would say 95% are not going to work out, because when the passion starts to fizzle out, which is a normal phase of every relationship, things are going to change.
Yeah. What I've found is that I used to think if I was in a relationship with somebody, we needed to have common like activities and things we like to do together. Like you're saying, interest in sports, for example, or in my case, like not sports, maybe like hiking or yoga or something. But then I realized it's not really so much about shared activities for a lasting relationship. It's more about shared values. I know people say that all the time, but I feel like until you know what your values are, your mask doesn't come off. And therefore you can always play this like version of yourself for the other person. And so I feel like a lot of times we attract people based on what we think our values are, maybe not what they actually are. And because we haven't met ourselves very deeply yet either. So I feel some relationships, like what you're talking about, are designed to, the familial kind and the romantic kind, those are kind of designed to be that mirror and have you meet yourself deeply. But until you love somebody really deeply, you're not really willing to change or even look at yourself very much, I think, at least in my experience.
Right. And you're, another thing that's quite, I think, is okay to realize that you may not always have the same interests, and that's okay. You don't have to. I think that would be boring if you entirely had the same everything. So you don't have to have the same interests as a couple. Now, it's good to have some shared interests, but it's also good to have your own separate life. Like, I think each person should have their own friends, their own social circles, unique, and then you can combine them too sometimes. But the important thing is to do things yourself.
Celebrate difference, and don't be codependent, and be like interdependent to kind of combat that. Set your boundaries.
Interdependent is really probably the best way to describe that. where it's like you're independent, but you're also know when to have your moments to combine.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. Okay, so I know we're like out of time, but do you want to just, where can we get your book at? And do you have
Sure.
any like workshops coming up or anything you want to pitch?
Follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Instagram, and you can check out my book, Rise Above the Script, Confronting Self-Doubt and Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. And just go to my website, albertbramante.com, and I'd love to connect and have the conversation.
This has been such a great
I
conversation.
really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Wow. Albert, I love talking to psychologists and people who think about the human experience all the time. Just as we were talking about in the last episode, hitting rock bottom is for some reason necessary for humans to have the, I guess, strength or courage or even drive to change. There's nothing worse than it not being that bad, because then you're not going to change. So if you're listening to this and you are feeling not too good about life, just know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but not without the deepest pain you have ever felt. That was Albert Bramante. I'm Megan Aully, and this has been Is There More? Thanks for listening.